After this, Jesus went across Lake Galilee, or Lake Tiberias, as it is also called. A large crowd followed him because they had seen his miracles of healing the sick. Jesus went up a hill and sat down with his disciples. The time for the Passover festival was near. Jesus looked around and saw that a large crowd was coming to him.
Where can we buy enough food to feed all these people?
He said this to test Philip. Actually, he already knew what he would do.
For everyone to have even a little, it would take more than 200 silver coins to buy enough bread.
Another one of his disciples, Andrew, who was Simon Peter's brother, said,
"There's a boy here who has 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish. But they will certainly not be enough for all these people."
Make the people sit down.
There was a lot of grass there, so all the people sat down. There were about 5,000 men. Jesus took the bread, gave thanks to God, and distributed to the people who were sitting there. He did the same with the fish. And they all had as much as they wanted. When they were all full, he said to his disciples,
Gather the pieces left over. Let us not waste a bit.
So they gathered them all and filled 12 baskets with the pieces left over from the 5 barley loaves which the people had eaten. Seeing this miracle that Jesus had performed, the people there said, "Surely this is the prophet who was to come into the world."
Now, there's a couple of things that you need to take notice of. One, I wanted you to get a visualization of what it might look like for 5,000 people. Now, when we got to go to Israel last year, we got to be at the very spot that they think that this action actually take place, that this miracle took place. It's right there on the Sea of Galilee. There's actually a church there dedicated to that, and there's a mountain hillside that goes up, and so that was very conducive to teaching because it forms a natural amphitheater and all this kind of stuff. But I wanted you to understand, because we read that 5,000, and we don't really comprehend that. So here's just a little tidbit. For one thing is 5,000, it said 5,000 men. And so the general consensus is back then, sorry women, but you just like, you were important, but you weren't, you know. So anyway, they didn't really count you amongst these groups. And so there was probably just as many women. There was probably children as well. So there could have been anywhere from 10 to 15,000 people there. But even if we go back to the number of 5,000, can anybody tell me how many people live in Center, Texas? 5,800. It's actually not quite 6,000. So if you were all of a sudden told to feed every single man, woman, and child in Center, okay, that's what these disciples were just told to do. Can you imagine? You drive these streets of within the Center city limits. You drive these streets, you see all these homes, you see all these neighborhoods, and if you told everybody to get out of their houses and come to, well, they couldn't even fit in Walmart parking lot, but if you told them to come there, you had to feed all these. That's a bunch of people. And here's what happens. Jesus, they had just crossed over. They start walking up the hillside. They see the people coming, so he's preparing to be able to speak to them. And he says this, it says this in John chapter 6, and this is out of the NIV, starting at verse 5. It says, when Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He just looks over at Philip and just says, hey, man, look at all these people out here. They're everywhere, and they're hungry. How are we going to find a place to get enough bread for them? And so the thought that came to my mind was this. You see, how many of you ask Jesus questions? You know, every day. Why this? Why not this? We ask Jesus questions all the time. How many of you have somebody in your life that's knowledgeable about something? Maybe they're a mechanic, maybe they're an electrician, maybe they're a teacher, and because of their knowledge, whenever you're around them, a lot of times you have questions to ask them. And if they were to ask you questions, you'd be in trouble. So here's Jesus. I think I got a slide for this one, Phil, too. You might have had it up already, but go ahead and throw it up there. What do we do when Jesus asks us the question? When we have a problem and Jesus asks us. I mean, he's supposed to have all the answers. He's supposed to be the solution when we see an issue. And so here's Jesus, and he's just saying, hey, Philip, we got a problem. Houston, we've got a problem. Philip, we got a problem. Where are we going to buy all this bread? I don't know. I don't know. Why are you asking me, Jesus? You know, we have an issue if Jesus starts asking us questions. What if in the morning you woke up and all of a sudden you were notified by the phone of some major problems that day? And you say, oh, I better go to Jesus in prayer. Dear Lord, yes. Oh, do you know what happened? Yeah, what are we going to do about that? Where are we going to get an answer? Yeah, that's not what you're wanting to hear, is it? You're wanting to have him have the solution. And so what are we going to do when Jesus looks at us and says, what are we going to do? I don't know if he asked it panically. I don't know if he asked it sarcastically. We don't know. Jesus many times exaggerated, went beyond what would be normal, so we don't know. I love the little smirk. Did you notice when Andrew came up in the video and he says, but what are these with so many? And Jesus sort of looked at him like, oh, if you only knew. If you only knew. I wonder how many times he looks at us the same way. But here John clues us in. You may have picked this up in the video. Jesus asked this only to test Philip. It's the only reason he asked. He says, Philip, where are we going to buy all the bread for this? He was testing him. You see, what we need to understand is there's a lot of times in our lives when we go to Jesus with questions and we're wondering where the help's going to come from. Why isn't he helping? How's this going to work out? How's this going to work out? And when the time is prolonged, when the deliverance is prolonged, when the rescue is prolonged, when the restoration, we have to wait for it, or it comes from a way we don't know, a lot of times it's simply this. There's a test involved. We started off talking about school. Jesus tests us sometimes. Why would he want to test us? And why Philip? You know, Philip, he's not one of the big three. If I was Philip, I'd say, I don't know, ask Peter. Or the other two of the big three, James and John. You see, the big three was Peter, James, and John. They got to go, they got special privileges. They got to go with Jesus in places no one else got to go with. They got to hang with Jesus. They were the inside clique with Jesus. They were the ones that you always read about. You know, even James and John, you got the sons of thunder. We understand some of the things that they went through and some of the things that they were privy to. Peter definitely was at the top. And yet all of a sudden he's asking Philip. Brother Hart, that got me to wondering, why not ask these other ones? Now, I'm not putting them above anybody else, but let me use this as an example. Because Jesus tested Peter many, many times, just in different ways. He tested them all many, many different times in many different ways. But on this particular matter, he went to one that he knew was struggling with this kind of issue. If he went to Peter, Peter might have had an answer. If he went to James or John, they might have had an answer. There's certain things that Jesus may not come to me and ask me, but he's going to go to you and ask you. And you might be saying, ask the pastor. I get that. A lot of people have that answer. I don't know what to do. Let's ask pastor. Where are we going to buy all this bread? I don't know. Let's go ask pastor. But he's not asking me. He's asking you. And there's going to be those times in life when he's asking you. And I find it curious that he would say to Philip, of all people, we don't even really read anything about Philip after he's part of the called to be a disciple. We hardly ever hear of Philip. But this day, he was put on the spot. The teacher picked him to answer the question. How many of you, when somebody, you know, there's times even in church, I'll ask a question, and people are like scared to raise their hands. I mean, you're like grown-up adults, right? What do you think's going to happen? Oh, you had that wrong. Where's my club? I'm fixing to beat the snot out of you. I mean, we're in church. I'm your pastor. What am I going to do? You know, you think I'm going to come down there and say, oh, man, you got serious problems. Bring the oil. We're going to drown this person. We're going to pray them through because they got a wrong answer. You know, it's weird, but we don't like answering questions. We don't like answering questions from people we know. We don't like answering questions in a group. We went to Hell House the other night down there. They put all like 25 of us in this circle, and that guy started asking questions. It's like none of the adult people wanted to answer the question. Finally, the one little boy broke the ice and said something. Then finally, a few people started saying things. It's crazy. Why Philip? Philip needed to be tested. Now, in the usual use through Scripture, the word test here is parazo, and it has a neutral kind of meaning. But maybe this will make you feel better. Do you understand that this is the same word that was used when it says the Holy Spirit led Jesus into the wilderness to be tested? See, Jesus had to pass the test too. He had to take the test. It's also the same word that was used when Abraham was asked or told to take his son, his only son, up onto Mount Moriah and sacrifice him. That word, perizo, was used in that word too as a test. Both of these were tests for children of God and people that were in spiritual right places. But in all these cases, God's intention was not to make you a failure. It was not his intent. Sometimes we think tests are designed to make us look foolish, be embarrassed because we don't know the right answers. But in Scripture, when it uses the words test, the natural expectation is that the person that's in that situation, that their faith would be grown stronger, and they would become wiser, more developed, learn how to cope with these things, and so the next time they face it or someone else in their life faces it, they would be able to help them. They would gain wisdom. They would gain strength. They would gain knowledge and experience. So Jesus didn't want Philip or us to miss that he was about to do something big. So we asked Philip this question. Look at all these people. Where can we go buy some bread? Now there's another reason why he might have asked Philip. In this particular region, the closest city was Bethsaida. And it was about 9 miles away. Philip was from there. So it'd be like if somebody came to this area that wasn't from here, maybe they're from Houston, maybe from Dallas, and they'd say, where's a good place to eat? And you'd say, well, we got Mexican, or Mexican. We've actually lost a few through the time, but still, it's like that's about all there. But they would ask you, where's a good place to eat? If they had car problems, where's a good mechanic? If they had any questions, where's a good doctor? Where's a good babysitter? All these type of things. They're going to ask because you're from around this area. So possibly he was saying this to Philip because Philip was familiar. He grew up here. But at the same time, so did Peter, and so did James, so did John. Most of them were fishermen, and this was the part of the area that they lived and came from. So still, he singled out Philip among all the rest. Maybe he was wanting to know if Philip would actually say, see, because a lot of times when we have problems, you don't have to raise your hand for this right now, but how many times when we have a problem, we offer the solution to God? Oh, you could do this. You could get my banker to do this. You could give this person to do this. You could get this. And we start figuring out all these ways and we give God options. Maybe he thought Philip would say, well, there is a person I know that's a baker, or there is this one place we could go to see if he was going to try to offer a human solution, but Philip didn't. As a matter of fact, Philip doesn't respond whatsoever. So I think he was just left with this, which sometimes we find ourselves doing ourselves. So here's the thing. Jesus was testing because he wanted to stretch Philip's faith. You see, stretching we don't really like. I got an illustration, and it shows a rubber band. And when we take a rubber band, if you're just holding a rubber band, just dangling like this, it's loose and stuff like that, it's worthless. It don't do anything. Matter of fact, if the rubber band's this big around and I take something just smaller than that, it's just going to fall off. It's not going to do anything. The rubber band does no good whatsoever until it's stretched. When it's stretched, it's able to fulfill its purpose. The problem is we don't like being stretched. Have you ever noticed that rubber band when it's stretched? The more you stretch it, can I say this? Pastor, I always get into trouble. I was going to say it's sort of like them spandex some people wear. When it stretches, it changes color and size. So you can tell it's being stretched. It don't look right anymore. It's going beyond what it likes to do, but it's still doing. But that's when it's useful. That person is glad it's stretching because it's holding everything together that they wanted held together. But the rubber band has to be stretched to fulfill its purpose. We're the same way. Our faith is no good if it's not stretched beyond, because if we feel safe and comfortable, our faith isn't being used. We've got our own abilities or we're trusting someone else. But the minute we start getting stretched, it's beyond our capacity, and then God can use us. And the reason I like this illustration, I found this, and it had some other wording on, and you don't realize all these things. You think I just find these slides. I found the picture, and it had other wording on. I had to erase all the wording they had and put my wording on there and all that kind of stuff. But there's a reason why I like this one. Because I believe when God stretches us, he has a purpose to propel us somewhere. And so once we get stretched, like you can see this right here, all of a sudden, once it gets to that point where he wants it to, then he can let go, and it propels us, and all of a sudden we're accomplishing things we could never accomplish before. And so this is actually what the verse says. It says, Jesus was testing Philip to strengthen his faith. It said he was doing this to test him, and now it says it's testing him to stretch his and strengthen his faith. But in the Passion Translation, there's so many translations out there, sometimes you can't get them right. The Passion Translation actually says Jesus did this to stretch his faith. You see, just like Philip, there's going to be some times when he asks us to give him a human solution. Here's your problem. You give me a human solution to this problem. But here's the thing. You're going to come across a lot of problems there is no human solution for them. There's times when the doctors say, we've done all we can do. There's no human solution. When you've talked to every rich uncle you got, they're all tired of giving you money, you can't get a job, there's no human solution. Unless you take your truck and hook a chain to it and try to steal the ATM at Shelby County Savings. I still think that's funny that you ought to see the cylinder of my truck where the key goes. It's just all ripped out of there. That screwdriver jacked it all up in there. Crazy that they were trying to do that. Jesus knew there wasn't a human solution, but yet he's asking, what's the human solution? We got a lot of people we got to feed. What can we do? You see, I think sometimes he just wants us to understand that if this thing happens, it's all him. That it couldn't happen any other way. And that he's going to get the glory. You see, God had a plan. It said Jesus asked Philip, where are we going to buy all this bread? And he was testing him, although he already knew what he was going to do. You see, we like knowing that Jesus knows what he's going to do, but he don't always tell us what he's going to do. Nowhere in the Scripture does it say he has to tell us what he's going to do, even if we ask him. There's a lot of things he keeps secret. He just does it. And it's like, you'll know it when I do it. But when? You'll see it when it happens. He's not required to tell us the details, the ins, the outs, the wheres, the hows. Once again, if he told me every detail, Miss Karen, I wouldn't have to have faith. Because I knew next week on Wednesday at 3 o'clock, the skies were going to open and money was going to fall down from heaven. I'd be cool. But since he don't tell me, and I don't know if it's going to happen today, tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year, all I know is he says it'll be in time, but his time never lines up with my time, so that's still not going to make me happy. Because I'm only going to be happy if he does it in my time, because I think I need it way quicker than he does, whatever it is. Whether it's healing, whether it's restoration, or whatever the case is. And I say it all the time, but I like reminding you because we forget. Jeremiah 29:11, which everybody loves to quote and has on coffee cups and bookmarks and T-shirts and all that kind of stuff. The thing I love about that verse, that next time somebody quotes that, just not really to be mean to them, but to shake them up a little bit, and they say, yeah, for I know the plans I have for you, not to harm you, but to prosper you. Nowhere in Jeremiah 29 does he ever say, and I'm going to tell you what the plans are. He just says, for I know the plans I have for you. Go read it. I know the plans I have for you. You don't. There he goes. Phil threw it up there to prove Pastor is right. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Do you know they had to wait a long time for that? This was said while they were in captivity in Babylon for 70 years. God said, I got a plan for you. It's going to be good. That's all he says. That's all we're entitled to know. And so if we know everything, we don't need faith. So Jesus already had a plan. Just like God says, I've already got a plan to feed these people, Philip. You don't know it. Your mind is going to be when I do it. But I ain't telling you nothing. Where are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? Oh, God, it can't be done. It's what I was waiting for you to say so I can prove myself to you and I can show myself to this world. Jesus highlighted the powerful, miraculous act that he was about to perform. It's not always about us. It wasn't about them getting glory. It wasn't about the people. It was about him proving he was the Son of God. About him and his will. He already knew what he was going to do. Jesus already has a plan. Before you were even confronted with your problem. Do you think Jesus just formulated that plan sitting on that hillside? That he got up there? Ooh, that's a bunch of people. Let's see, I got to do some quick calculations here. Never was good in school. Matter of fact, I don't even know if I went to school. 5 plus 2 is 5,000. Sort of like on Shrek. You ever watch the movie Shrek? At that point, that guy's going, choose 2, my Lord, choose 2. Don't make no sense. But he already had a plan. Before he got off the boat, he knew there was going to be a bunch of people there, and they needed to feed them. Jesus has a plan for you before your problem even was on your radar. And just as he did with Philip, Jesus sometimes is going to test us by putting us in a difficult situation with no easy answers. I wonder, you see, once again, as a pastor and as a studier of the Scripture, I can't just read it like you do. We just read it and we think it just happened. Hey, Philip, where are we going to get the bread? Andrew comes running up. Here's fish. Okay, let's go. And in 5 minutes, this problem was solved. I don't think it happened that way. I believe the Jeopardy music started. Hey, Philip, where are we going to get enough bread to buy this? Do, 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 do. And they're sitting there. Because even though Philip's there by him and he's asked the question, all the disciples were there. They all heard it. And they're probably saying, don't look at him, he might ask you. Don't look at Jesus, he's going to ask you now. Everybody's trying to, but I'm going to try to figure out, what could we do? What could we, if all of us done it? I believe he just let them think about it for a while. I don't think it happened fast. When we're in a problem, does your answers come fast? Yeah, Jesus can do stuff immediately, and sometimes he does, but most often the time, we have to do a little bit of clock watching. Let that clock tick, tock, tick, tock. Where's the answer? Where's the answer? And so I could see Jesus just sitting there letting him mull about it for a long time. Matter of fact, probably long enough that Andrew, while he's sitting there saying, I'm going to look at Jesus either, and he looks up and says, check out that little boy over there. He's got something in that basket. I think I'm like taking candy from a baby. I'm going to go get this from this kid. At least if Jesus asked me, I'm going to have an answer. I don't know, Lord, but at least I got this. Them other guys are sort of dumb, but at least I figured something out. He might have remembered the parable of the talents. Remember when the rich guy said, you know I'm a hard man. Why didn't you do at least something? Philip said, well, I'm going to do at least something. Sometimes he's going to test us by putting us in a difficult situation with no easy answers. What was Philip's reaction? I imagine shame, embarrassment. I imagine frustration. I imagine immediately he felt overwhelmed. Too big for him. He didn't have an answer. He couldn't think of something to do. But frustration wasn't Jesus' purpose. Frustration is not God's purpose in our lives either. When solutions can't be found, do you trust God? Or do you try to find the human solution first? Or do you get to the point where you just say, there is no solution, it's hopeless, I give up? Philip's problem was, during this contemplation time, he was looking too much at resources that were available to him. He was presented an obstacle, a problem, a situation. He's trying to figure out a solution. And I guarantee you, he was going around, even if I went to every house of everybody I know, we can't get enough bread for these people. Even if we had money, remember he said about the money, we're going to talk a little bit about more of that in just a second. But whenever we start focusing on our resources and our options and our solutions, we're limiting God. We have to learn to trust him. We really just need to say, I don't know, Lord. I think that's really what he's wanting us to say in that moment. In that moment when there is no solution, instead of trying to prove how smart we are or how strong we are or I'm capable, God, I've done a lot of things in my life, I'll attack this problem. It's not what he wants at all from us. He wants an humble answer of saying, I don't know. I'll let you watch this video. I had to trim it down from 12 minutes, but it's actually two guys. I've never run across them before. But they actually do live comedy in front of an audience, and they do it to Christian stories. And so they actually did one about the parable of feeding of 5,000. And so it's Peter and Andrew that are sitting there, and it's sort of a modern-day retelling of this story of how it might be and how the disciples might have been, but in sort of a modern-day setting. So, like I said, it's comical, so just enjoy yourself. I thought they were funny. A modern-day feeding of the 5,000.
Andy, does he have any idea what time it is?
Someone should go talk to him.
I think someone should talk to him.
I think someone should talk to him.
I think someone should talk to him.
Well, I'm not going to do it.
It's not going to be me.
Well, I'm not going to do it.
No, I'm not doing it.
Sometimes I don't even think he speaks our language. What if he starts talking in those preables again? Because I have no idea what he's saying when he's talking in those preables.
Andrew. Parables. He calls them parables, not preables.
Whatever. A good measure pressed down, shaken up, and running over the mustard seeds with the yeast of the Pharisees. What's that supposed to mean, yeast of the Pharisees?
I have no idea. You know what gets to me? When he uses numbers. You know how I am with numbers. I got a little problem with numbers. I think he knows it too.
Think?
Always looking at me when he throws one out. You ever notice that? Yeah. I think he might as well save some time and just go, hey, Pete, 144. I hate that. I'll talk to him this time. You got to talk to him next time.
Deal.
All right.
Fisherman shake?
Jesus, could we have a word with you? Oh, no, it won't take long. Then you can, get right back to it. Yeah. Well, it's just this, Lord. There's a lot of people here, and it's getting towards supper time, and we were thinking that it's time to let them all go home so they could get something to eat.
Yeah.
Beg pardon? He said we should give them something to eat.
Right. Us. There are thousands of people here. With what?
With what? We should find something. He said we should find something.
It's not one of those preables again, is it? Because
Andrew.
he's always doing that.
Andy. It's not a parable. Uses a different tone of voice for parables.
So we're literally supposed to find something to eat.
That's what he said.
Well, I don't have anything.
I
Do you
don't
have
either.
anything?
No.
Well, what?
Which means we have to go find something. Go look.
Okay,
go
I'll
ask
go look.
some people.
Okay. Listen, folks, I was just wondering if you have anything.
Anybody bring
any kind
anything
of
with them
candies
that you
or
need?
anything in the like anything.
Oh, great.
Come on!
How'd you do?
Well, I got a piece of gum, a Ricola, and a peppermint. No, honey, lemon. Oh, that's for sore throats. And then some Tic Tacs. How'd you do?
Well, I got a couple of M&Ms
Ew.
and
What?
looks like some trail mix, quite honestly, and
They didn't.
pack of tissues.
That's handy.
Well, yeah, there's some mint, 3 Musketeers, the Icebreakers, and one Sour Patch Kid.
You scored.
Well, the guy had a whole bag. He only gave me one.
Sorry. Oh, thanks, Phil.
Okay.
Thanks for that late entry.
Yeah. Well, that's a cute basket, but that's not going to feed anybody.
Okay.
What, Lord? Oh, yeah. Oh, we've been out. Yeah. Collecting that food. What do we have? Well, that's an excellent question, Lord. We got the basket, 4 or 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. And the Tic Tacs, throat lozenges, the piece of gum. Got the package of tissues, trail mix, Icebreakers, the mint, 3 Musketeers, and, 1 Sour Patch Kid.
Did you get sunglasses too?
Yeah, well, sunglasses. Yeah. Well, I have to give those. But just
Those are
one
nice.
sec.
Ray-Bans.
Excuse me, Lord? No, not peanut M&Ms, just the regulars. Excuse me? Oh, we should pass it out now. All of it. No, we didn't think it was funny either, Lord. He says he's going to take it down to the other end, break it, we make a couple of lines, pass it out.
Shouldn't take very long.
Let's go. Hey, Andy, we got some bread here.
Bread!
We got fish.
And we got fish and bread.
Trail mix.
Wow, trail mix. Whoa, Kleenex.
What?
Tell Jesus the people are fed up.
I'm pretty sure I can't say it like that. Look! Everybody has something. Jesus, we got enough. Yeah. What did he say? The leftovers.
Leftovers?
He said we're supposed to pick up the leftovers. You're not kidding, are you? He said we're supposed to pick up the leftovers and put them in baskets.
I'm not even going to ask.
I wouldn't either.
Got him?
I got the baskets.
Okay. Here.
How'd you do, Andy? What, are we done?
Did you, what, did all of them?
Well, I guess.
Okay.
I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
All done,
Oh.
Lord. Sorry? How many baskets are there? Oh, good. Numbers.
You can do it.
Thanks very much. 11. There's 11 baskets, right?
There's 12.
Really?
Yeah, there's 4 rows of 3, so you multiply, and it's...
That'd be 12.
Yep.
There's 12, Lord. And what does it mean?
Oh! Why can't 12 just be 12?
Does everything have to be a teachable moment with this guy?
Peter? There's 12 baskets.
I'm pretty sure I got that by now.
And there's 12 of us.
I know.
And 12 tribes of Israel. Oh, Lord, call on us. We know what it means. Okay, you tell him.
Oh, well, Jesus, try this one on. Well, there's the 12 baskets, right? And, well, there's 12 of us. And there are 12 tribes of Israel. Hmm? And what does that mean? Where does he think we have the information to fill in his blanks?
I thought it was a good answer.
That was a great answer.
Okay, Huddle.
Huddle.
Okay. I think it's the yeast of the Pharisees.
What's that got to do?
No, he's always talking about bread.
Can't we just picked up 12 baskets?
Okay. Let's just go with the usual.
The usual?
Yeah, the usual. We don't know.
The bottom line is the best answer is we don't know. I thought they done an excellent job. It was, like I said, about 4 or 5 minutes longer. It was a lot of funny. It's Christian comedy. But that's the way we are so many times in these places. Lord, why is everything a test? Why is there so many questions? Why are you asking me? I don't know. You expect me to do all these things. You're the Lord. You're the one that's supposed to have the answers. Philip's response, finally, after much contemplation, when Jesus said, where are we going to buy all the bread for these people to eat? In verse 7, Philip's response was, Lord, it would take 8 months' wages. 200 denarii. Now, the thing is what they done is they broke this down for you because the average worker had 1 denarii a day. So 200 denarii would be 200 days. So Philip's thinking, my goodness, Lord, even if we knew where to get this bread, it would cost so much, we would have to work for 8 months just to buy them to give them a bite or a snack. Now, I like the translations that say the months rather than just the denaries, because here's something that I have found in life. There's a lot of times in life we will go to purchase something, and if the monthly payment is enough that we think we can afford, we do it because we don't look at the big bill, we look at the little bill. There's times we will say, I wonder if I should buy this item, and maybe it's $400 or $500, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $1,500, and we have that much money, and we're saying, maybe I should buy this. But have you ever all of a sudden thought, instead of saying, yeah, I've got $1,500, but then have you ever thought and said, yeah, but if I broke that down, how many hours did I have to work to purchase this? Was it worth that much time of my life? Sometimes we'll say, no, it ain't worth that. I didn't think, we could say $200 is one thing, but then if you made $10 an hour and you had to work 20 hours for it, that's almost 2.5 days for the average person. So $200 might not sound like much. If somebody said, could you give me $200? Yeah, no problem. Will you come work for me 2.5 days for free? You'd say, no way. It's the same thing. You work 2.5 days to get $200. You want this thing? You can have it. Just come work for me for a week and you can have it. No way. But yet we will spend the money that we work a week for to get something. You see, sometimes we don't weigh exactly the cost of something. And so Philip was wise enough to say, not only did it cost that, but, man, that's 8 months' work. But did you ever notice that Philip didn't even ever answer Jesus' question? What was Jesus' question? There you are. I ain't answering. Don't look at Pastor. Huh? No, the very first question he asked him, Philip, where can I go get this? He didn't ask him how much it cost. He didn't ask him for a solution. He didn't say, how many people's it going to take to go get this? He just said, Philip, where can we get this stuff? Yeah, he said, where can we buy this much bread? But the key question was where? Where? You see, the thing is we focus on the other part. Jesus was really homing in on the where. Because he said, there ain't nowhere you can get this much bread. There ain't a bakery in Bethsaida that can make this much bread. It's not about the money. It's not about how many people would have to walk to town to get it. It's not about how long it's going to take to get it. I'm saying where. You concentrate on the where, you're going to say, there ain't no place. Lord, you're the only... What he's trying to do is get Philip to understand, I'm the where. I'm the where. Where can you do this? Where can you get this? Where is your answer going to come from? You know, he could say, let's to get the emphasis off the buy side of it, he could say if we had a health condition, where are you going to find a doctor that can cure you? The whole question is not about the doctor or how much the hospital is going to cost, which we might say, or how much insurance we've got, which we might respond with. It's all about the where. You ain't going to find a doctor because they've already said they don't have an answer. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter if you fly to the most exotic places and try the most exotic. The where. Where can you buy all this bread? You see, there's a couple of things here too also because Jesus had given a discourse and was about to tell them some more that I am the bread of life. And so he was wanting them to understand that to the unsolvable problems, the only place you can go is to me. Where shall we buy the bread? But Philip responded with what he worried about, the bigger problem. I ain't got enough money. Even if there was a place I could go get it, I don't have enough money. He was looking at the wrong part of the problem. Jesus was wanting him to focus on him. Knowing the area, he might have thought of some places he could go. Even if they had enough people to go out and get it. But Jesus wanted him to understand he was not only the where, but the how as well. If he understood Jesus was the where, he understood the cost was already paid too. He didn't have to worry about the cost. Jesus always handles the cost. Jesus always picks up the tab. He always provides what you need to get the rest of what you need. If you go to the doctor because you feel the Lord is saying to go that route and you go to the doctor, Jesus will provide the means to pay for that doctor. That's what he's trying to get at. And then now this is where Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, comes in. Andrew was known as the quiet one. Some places he's called the silent disciple. Maybe you've heard of that before. Because you never hear nothing about Andrew whatsoever outside of the very beginning. And all of a sudden Andrew comes up and he joins the discussion. Like I told you, all the disciples heard it. Andrew actually happened to figure out something. But here's what I'm wanting you to understand. Andrew's a key figure in this. Because while everybody else is saying, there's no way we can get enough money to do this, there's no place we can go to get the answer, when that happens, God still expects us to look around and use what we already have. Moses, get your rod. David, pick up a stone. Neither one of them sounded like a logical solution to the answers that they needed, but it was all that they had. And so Andrew, you have to understand the faith that Andrew had. These two guys were laughing. I guarantee you some of them disciples, Andrew comes walking up, he's a quiet one, he don't say nothing. And he's got this little basket, he's got this little 10-year-old kid by the hand, he got a little basket. I guarantee you, some of them smirked, laughed, and thought, oh, leave it to Andrew. He's going to make us all look like a fool. Anybody know? I could eat that. When Phil gets a plate of food that's not enough, he will use these words, that's only enough to make you mad. Not enough to fill you up, just enough to make you mad. 5 little old pieces of bread and 2 fish. Any one of them grown men could easily eat that themselves. And now you're looking at every man and woman. What would you, if you had that plate of food sitting by you, would you even offer it to Jesus? Would you even say, some people, to try to explain miracles, it's crazy. You know, they try to explain the parting of the Red Sea. One of the ways they tried to explain this particular miracle of all this food was the fact that, and there's actually, some pastors actually preach this. They said the boy willingly able to share what he had caused everybody out there to get a heart of sharing and compassion, and they all began to share what they had with each other, and so that's why there was so much. So, if the pastor and Sister Angela that preaches that, all of a sudden he doesn't understand that Jesus knew these people were hungry and needed eating, he didn't have any clue that they all had plenty of food. All they had to do was share it. Jesus asked for that, blessed that, and that's what was used. There was no common sharing because of the goodness of one person. But you see, people don't like the idea of having a miracle without a natural scientific explanation. But here's Andrew, being willing to be made a fool of. And I think there was just, how much faith does the Bible say we have to have? A mustard seed, tiny, tiny bit. That tiny, tiny bit, tiny, tiny faith looks ridiculous. Because it's like, okay, I got this, God. I don't think he would have brought it to Jesus if there wasn't somewhere in his heart or in his spirit that said, this needs to be brought to Jesus, because I've seen him do some amazing things. I don't know where, I don't know how, I don't know what it's going to do, but I think I need to take it to Jesus. Sometimes we have to exhibit that same kind of faith when you get up from that chair and come up to an altar. I don't know what God can do. This is ridiculous. Just coming up to an altar, why can't, people fight it all the time. Why can't I just stay in my chair? I'm still in his house. I'm still in his presence. I'm within the sound of the pastor's voice. But you haven't exhibited faith. Sometimes you are literally from your chair to this altar, not because of who's praying for you, but because Jesus is waiting for you to exhibit some faith. And it's the step of faith that causes you to go up there. I may look foolish. What will people think? Andrew had to face that same thing. And there's 5,000. Everybody in the front row. There was some big old guys sitting out there. Yeah, I'm hungry. What? What's he think he's going to do with those 5 little loaves and those 2 little fishes? Andrew had to have some amazing faith. Here's something else sort of trips me out. I don't want to say this because it's sort of political. There's a political party that they like to give away other people's stuff. I ain't saying nothing. You have discerning minds. There's a political party that likes to give away other stuff. That's what Andrew did. Andrew said, I ain't got nothing but this little boy. Son, sorry, you ain't got that bread no more. I'm going to take what you got, what you've been blessed with, what you worked hard for, what your mama gave you, and I'm going to give it away to somebody else. Sometimes we're real quick to give away other people's stuff. Andrew comes up. He don't offer his own lunch, but he says, here's this little boy. You know, but he actually answered Jesus' original question. Jesus said, where can we get some bread? He said, where should we buy bread for these people to eat? All of a sudden, Andrew says, here's bread. Jesus didn't say he required a certain amount of bread. He said, where can we get bread for these people to eat? Andrew says, here's bread. Most of the time when Jesus asks you something, he's not going to ask you for something you don't have. He's going to ask you for something that you have. But it's not going to seem enough. But when we offer him what we have, no matter how small it is, he makes it enough. Andrew says the only available food was this boy's lunch. Barley loaves and fish were food for the poor. So it was a poor person that just had a little bit of stuff for themselves to have for their whole day's journey. That's all that there is. Of course, Andrew, I think there's a little flicker of doubt. But Lord, how far will this go among so many? Was Andrew joking? Was he being sarcastic? Or maybe was he exhibiting just enough faith that Jesus was able to work the miracle and provide food for 5,000 people? Maybe it's your little bit of faith in a hard situation that you say, Lord, I'm not much. I don't have much. I don't know a lot. I'm not experienced. This is all new to me. But here it is. Here I am. Take me, take it, use it, make something out of it. And that faith to trust God with that causes the interaction of the miracle to happen. Maybe Andrew was just throwing it out there to see how Jesus would respond. Okay, Jesus, you said, where are we going to get the bread? Here you go. We think it's a challenge to him. That's what he's been waiting for, is the opportunity to do that. Andrew didn't know the answer. He didn't have a solution, but he gave what he had. We need to understand to give Jesus what you got. Let him take it from there and watch what he can do. No matter what situation you're in, God is able. We're going to close this in just a couple minutes. Watch this quick video called Impossible.
Everyone wants a miracle, but no one wants to be put in the crisis that requires a miracle. The only way you really need a miracle is that you have a problem. And the bigger the problem, the bigger the miracle you need. We like miracles, but not the problems that go with them. But sooner or later, it's going to happen to you. The phone is going to ring, and your calm, tranquil, well-ordered life is instantly going to be in a raging storm. Sooner or later, you're going to face a crisis beyond your power to control.
Our God is a God who wants to perform the miraculous in your life. There are times in our lives where we face something that it just seems like there's no way out. We could do all the math in our mind, and our mind will tell us there's nothing that can be done here. Maybe you're in a job, and you know God wants to bless you, but you look at your situation and you think, well, God can't move here. My boss doesn't like me. I can't get along with the other people at work. There's such a ceiling in my environment. It's impossible for God to move in this situation. Other times we might say, well, my marriage, Pastor, it's just so bad. It's been so many years that it's been sliding in the wrong direction. I don't know that God could ever move our marriage into the position that he keeps talking about. How is God going to change these things in my life? Pastor, I've been attacked in my body for so long, and the diagnosis is that it's incurable. Nothing can be done here. I'm not sure that God could even move. I don't know what he would do. And our brain starts to opt us out of God's best in our lives. It says, well, the impossible things, I don't know that God still does that anymore. We begin to forget the things in our past where God did perform the miraculous. Can you think back to a time when God did something miraculous in your life that no one could explain? Something happened and you got a breakthrough when there seemed to be no way. There was a miracle that happened in your life that could not be explained with the mind. The mind wants to get in your way. It wants to say, well, that's impossible.
You see, that's the biggest problem. It's the problem Philip had. It's the problem we all have, is our mind. We try to think it out. We try to think it through. I like that part that he said, do you remember? You see, one of the things about this particular situation, we find out later on that when they're in a troubling situation, a storm at sea, that Jesus asked them, do you not remember the miracle of the loaves and fishes? You see, every time that we allow God to move in our lives, it's an opportunity to stretch our faith, to grow and be strengthened. And then we remember that the next time we find ourselves in a situation that God is able, that he can do the impossible. You see, the thing is impossible is a word for us. It's in human language, but it's not a word that God gives acknowledgement to. It's not a word that God operates with. He says there's nothing impossible for me. Nothing is too hard for me. Impossible is only a word for us because we have limits, but God is limitless. Nothing is impossible. All things are possible. When Jesus asked Philip where they could buy a great quantity of bread, Philip started assessing the cost. Jesus wanted to teach him that financial resources are not the most important ones. Neither is our wisdom. Neither is anything we have available to us. But yet in those times of trouble and hardship and struggle, we look to ourselves first, or those around us that may be better equipped for the things in life than we are. We limit what God does in us by assuming what is and is not possible. Is there a seemingly impossible task that you believe only God can do? God can do the miraculous. Just trust him to provide the resources. Jesus said, you give me 5 and 2 and I can turn it into 5,000. Whatever you need, I can do exceedingly abundantly above anything you ask or think. Just trusting him. Knowing that the answer to the question is really like those two guys said at the end. I don't know, Lord. He would rather have us say, I don't know, and allow him to do the work than to try to figure out the solution. Or the wisest thing we can do is say, only you. You're the answer. I'm going to close out with this song.